Bienvenidos, my fellow Latinos, and welcome to another episode of CTLN Opinion Plus. As you know, this is a space for us to voice our concerns, and as we are in the middle of an election week, that is our biggest concern. So today we have a very special guest. We have the executive director of Common Cause in Connecticut, Cheri Quickmire. Thank you so much for joining us, Cheri.
Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm very happy to be here.
I'm sure it's been a very stressful and hectic time for you.
Well, it's busy for all of us, I think. Everyone's on the edge of their chair for this one.
As we are in the thick of it when this is being filmed, Common Cause has worked on making voting more accessible and including amending the Connecticut Constitution. Can you tell us a little bit about what your organization did?
Sure. Well, first of all, Common Cause is an organization that's been around for 51 years. So we've been working on election reform around the country for a very long time. The attempt to amend the state constitution to make elections more accessible and to take the election reforms out of the state constitution was a campaign that we were very active with a few years ago. Unfortunately, that campaign did not pass the resolution to the Constitution did not pass the state General Assembly at the needed percentages to make it go next to the state ballot, the second time. So it did go through both the House and Senate. There was a lot of very positive feeling about it, but when it went to the ballot for voters to approve, it did not pass. So we are again making an effort to pass it through the state General Assembly. We will in the next legislative session. And we're very grateful to Secretary of the State Merrill for committing to introduce it again and to making sure that, that people have that opportunity. This is a particularly important time, I think, because folks have just come from two opportunities to use no excuse absentee balloting, and which is something that has not been available for Connecticut voters. We had our primary in August where people were given ballots and they were able given request forms and were able to send them back into the town clerk and receive an absentee ballot to send in. We just did that again here for the general election. And the overall view was that it went well. And I know we're still counting absentee ballots in Connecticut, but overall, I think people were very pleased with it and felt comfortable with the process. So I think this is something we definitely want to see possible for coming elections.
Right. And for those that don't know, Common Cause Connecticut is a nonpartisan group that holds the government accountable and protects voting rights. Another thing that I saw on your website that you guys participated in was the expansion of automatic voter registration.
Right.
How did that go?
Well, because the legislative session basically shut down in March, we were not able to take that through the committee process or take it to a vote. But yes, automatic voter registration, we think is an important reform that will make it possible for even more people to engage in our elections. There is, at the moment, the Secretary of the State has an agreement with the Department of Motor Vehicles to permit people who go to the DMV for business to be registered to vote at that time. And that's great, but it does not incorporate everyone. I mean, not every not every potential voter in Connecticut has a car or a yacht they need to go and register, and they don't go to the DMV, so or they don't have a driver's license. So we think that anytime an individual interacts with a state agency or an agency that does business with the state, they should be registered to vote. And that just would, I think, expedite things, and it would also update people's registration if they were registered, and it would make sure that we kept our voter rolls up to date. So this is something we're very much looking forward to discussing in the next legislative session.
I think it's very important, and I think it's a good idea. I also didn't know that you had to register a yacht. So, when I make that kind of money, thanks for the info.
Well, I saw it written on something and I was so shocked. I thought, okay, well, we're making things very easy for the uber wealthy here. But on the other hand, there are those of us who were lucky if we have time to go to the beach in the summer.
Oh, I know. So for some of us, all electoral processes are very complicated, including the ones in Connecticut. Can you explain to us how the electoral votes are counted in Connecticut?
I can try. I'm not an electoral expert, and I will preface the whole thing by saying that we worked hard in Connecticut to come accosted with allies, including the Connecticut Citizen Action Group and a number of other groups, to enroll Connecticut in a nationwide compact that says that if, in fact, there are enough states representing enough electoral college votes, then we will be able to vote by popular vote. So the national popular vote is something that we support, not the electoral college, which is one of the remaining vestiges of slavery in this country that we think needs to be eradicated. But we will see that when I think is it the second Wednesday after the election, there will be a convening of the people who have been appointed by the members of the General Assembly, who will come together and they will cast their votes for the candidate, the chosen candidate by the state. So that, and I'm not even sure I recall how many members of the Electoral College there are in the state, but we have 7 Electoral College votes. So we're not one of the big states where the presidential candidates come running, back and forth to convince voters to vote for them, because we don't have that many Electoral College votes.
Which is very interesting, speaking about the remaining vestiges of slavery and inequality.
Yeah.
Very interesting, because Connecticut has some of the wealthiest people and some of the poorest people in the country.
Yes.
So, yeah, it is interesting.
We absolutely do, and that was part of the whole formula when they made the decision to institute that practice. I mean, it was really an agreement made with Southern legislators to make that happen. So we're slaveholders in the North as well, so there's no ignoring that fact either.
Right. So last night on the news, speaking about voter suppression, we saw on the news poll watchers, as some people are referring to them, stand outside demanding votes be counted in certain states and not counted in other states. Is there any legitimacy to stopping the count of votes?
I don't think so. I really don't. And I think it seems like a desperate move made by the candidate to try to preserve, his hold on power. And I don't think there's any legitimacy to that, call for people to go and protest or people to sue, to make a bigger scene about it. So no.
Because you are a organization that is nonpartisan and also a watchdog and protector of voter rights, should an election be contested and lawsuits happen, what is the course of action for common cause?
Well, some of it will depend on what was accepted by the court. I mean, what claim? I mean, the fact that the sitting president is now saying, I'm going to take this to the Supreme Court. Well, you don't just get to call up the Supreme Court, even though you've appointed a bunch of people. That's just not how it works. So it will very much depend on what cases they've brought, what courts they go to, how it will proceed, and that will inform how it is that we interact. And I mean, Connecticut as a state, our state chapter does not litigate matters like that. That is something that my national office will be, making decisions about. But it just depends on what the claims are and how they're proceeding.
One, I guess, claim that
everything at the wall to see what sticks. That's what I see happening right now, but I don't know how that will go.
Mhm. One of the things trending on social media is the wondering that, I guess people are confused that elections are determined on election night. That actually isn't true, correct? Like it's
Right.
An entire process, and it does. I was very young at the time, but it does seem similar to the Bush-Gore election.
Yeah, and Americans, as you well know, North Americans have a real interest in making everything happen immediately. They want instant gratification and decisions to be made instantly, acquisitions to happen instantly, and this is no different than that. And but it never happens instantly. Elections are not verified for days after the election. So I think that people just need to be patient. We're looking for patience here. It's a lot of work to have a democracy. And election officials are working very hard to make sure that all the T's are crossed and I's are dotted and that every single vote is counted. Every voice counts, so every vote needs to count.
And I think we can definitely agree on that. So after this, we go back to state elections in about 2 years. And can you reiterate what will be on the state ballot again in terms of expanding voting?
Well, I don't actually have a copy of the language, and the language for the resolution will be different than it was last time around. And it will be hopefully more easy to understand. And we know that the secretary is committed to making this happen, and so that's very exciting. And we will, when we have the language, we will be sharing it everywhere, and to make sure that people are prepared in advance of arriving at the polls, because knowing that something is taped to the wall that you have to go and read at that time, or even manage to make it into the newspaper that not everyone reads, it makes it more difficult. So we're looking very, very hard at figuring out how to make it simple for people, how to make it understandable. And we will share that language, and she will share that language.
Thank you for joining us, Cheri. This was a great conversation, very informative. And I think you said some things out loud that some of us aren't courageous enough to say out loud.
Really? Like, what was that?
I just thank you very much for joining us.
You're very welcome. I'm very happy to be here, and I look forward to, hearing the rest of the work you're doing. I did watch the interview with Secretary Merrill and the Vice President of the League of Women Voters, who do great work, and I'm very glad you're going into this in depth.
All right. Thank you. And please take care of yourself during this time.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks. That was the Executive Director of Common Cause Connecticut, Cheri Quickmire. Thanks again for joining us. Tune in next week for another episode. Follow us on all of our social media handles at CTLN Latino, on Twitter at CTLN at CT Latino News, and Instagram at CT_Latino News. Please take care of yourself this week, my fellow Latinos. This is a very trying time. I'm Savani Campos with CTLN Opinion Plus. See you next time.